exactly energy and how can we use it as human beings. Welcome to this new episode of the Harvest series in the spirit of Kaplankaya, where the Harvest Summit will take place this May. We explore ideas and conversations that inspire growth. Today, I'm speaking with Jeffrey Allen, an energy healer and a teacher. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hi, Rose. So great to be here.
Thank you so much for letting this interview happen. I'm very excited. Are you in Tokyo right now? You're based in Tokyo.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in Tokyo for a little more than 10 years. It's great.
Wow. Okay. Maybe I'm going to ask you some questions about Tokyo and the impact it had on your journey a bit later. But first, I wanted to know if you could introduce yourself and explain me your mission now.
Sure. Yeah. So primarily working with my wife, Hisami, we've got a program called Spirit Mind. And the impetus or the reason why we created this program is just looking at the way consciousness works right now on the planet. It's clear that human consciousness is malfunctioning a little bit. You know, we're doing things that aren't good for us, aren't good for the planet. And just even when people are successful, they don't necessarily feel fulfilled. And so this program we created together is about, how do we address that on an energy level? So what's really going on the planet? Why are we feeling this way? And what can we do to change it? Okay. So that's my current focus. But I've been doing energy work for, wow, longer than I probably want to admit at this point, probably 30 years at least. About 30 years. And I also have a really popular program teaching about energy on Mindvalley.
Yes.
So
can you tell me what is energy in a simple way and how we can use it?
Sure. Yeah. When I say energy, it's kind of a generic term in some ways. So energy is just the connection that we all have. It's hard to describe without saying energy again. It's the way that we communicate with each other in a non-verbal and non-physical way. It's the way that everything connects. You could use words like universe. You'd be getting pretty close to the same thing. And when I teach energy work, what I'm teaching is how to sort of consciously use visualization and also to work with your body and your senses to start to understand the energy that's moving around you and change it as well. So we learn how to work with the energy in the body, how to work with energy of communication. And there's really no area that you can't use energy work for. So for me, I'm a very practical person. My background is actually math and science. I was a software engineer for 15 years before making this my full-time career. This was just my hobby for a long time.
Very interesting.
And I just found it just so fascinating. Anytime I was in a real kind of everyday situation, like if I was at work, I'm in a meeting, I'm getting kind of bored, I would just say, okay, so there's always something interesting happening if I look at the energy. So I would just start, instead of listening to the words strictly, I would also start to listen to the energy and watch what was happening energetically in the room between the different people. And then I would notice, oh, can I change that? Like there's a lot of conflict in this room. Is there a way I can raise the vibration of the room to help people communicate better, even though they don't know I'm doing anything? Turns out, yes, you can do that.
So that's extraordinary. So you can change during a meeting the atmosphere. What is it? What are we talking about? Is it the you call it the vibration? What's a vibration exactly?
Well, but if you look at the physics behind it, everything is energy, right? Everything is vibrating at certain frequencies, and basically, kind of the general concept behind energy healing is you're looking at taking a space where there's energy moving in a lot of different directions, sort of a non-coherent field, where there's many different energy movements, and you're trying to kind of line things up into a coherent field so things move more smoothly and more gracefully. In that way, you can kind of, if you're a musician, you're probably listening saying, oh, I kind of understand that, right? If you're playing on your guitar, the piano, or whatever instrument, if you're playing things that don't really fit together, it's going to sound kind of rough and difficult. But just a little bit of tuning, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, now it sounds really beautiful and uplifting. And so it's the same kind of thing. We're working with different frequencies and making them into a coherent field.
Okay. How do you connect with the energy? How do you visualize it, or do you feel it? How do you put a name on the energy, and how do you connect with it?
Well, for me, I've been doing this a long time. So for me, it's kind of all senses. I can feel energy with my hands. That's probably the easiest way that I teach people. if we're in a class, or we can do it right now, you just kind of put your hands like this, and you just kind of, you sort of just imagine you're sort of opening your hands like this, like there's little chakras here to kind of stretching open. And then if you put your, kind of face your hands together and sort of start imagining there's an energy ball there. And when I say imagine, because it gets people out of the logical space. Imagination doesn't mean something that's not real that you're making up. Right? And so with a little practice, people can usually start to notice after a minute or so, like, oh, it feels like maybe something's happening, even though I don't know what I'm doing, even though I never practiced. It's actually just it's part of our biology. It's built in. So you move your hands a little bit closer and further. Just tell me if you notice anything there.
Yeah, I can feel something. And how would you explain to then what do you do with this energy when you feel the energy? What's a second step? How to use it in a positive way? I guess most of the time.
Sure, yeah. With this exercise, if people are practicing just kind of feeling an energy ball and building this energy ball up, a couple things are happening. One, you're becoming more present in your body because it's interesting. Like you're doing something here in the present moment that's engaging and interesting, rather than thinking about the past or dreaming about the future. You're actually here now in your body in the present. So right away, you get more grounded and present just from this type of exercise. And then once you have a ball of energy, you can do whatever you'd like with it. You can say, oh, there's a place in my body I feel like I could use a little extra energy, or I'll use energy in this way for different projects. So I'll send energy to the different projects. Or one of the favorite things I've been doing recently is if there's a little bit of stress coming in, like if there's say it's stress about some future event, like I'm speaking at a conference pretty soon, and if it comes in and I notice a little bit of built up stress, what I do is I just build up a little energy and I just send that out to myself at that future time, so that in that moment I'll be receiving all that love and energy and healing that I'm sending in the present moment. And you can send it to the past as well. And it's kind of fascinating because if you play with this, even if it sounds like it doesn't make sense, I encourage people to just try things, because your experience is more important than your mental models, right? Mental models are just models, right? But experience is kind of the king. It's like if you do something and it's working for you, do you really care how it's working? Or are you just excited, like, whoa, this is exciting. I have some kind of superpower I didn't know about. And but I started noticing, especially in this context, right away, if I send, if I'm feeling stressed and I think, oh, this is just an indication that there's a chance for me to help right now. There's a way for me to step in and either send energy to myself in the past or in the future, or to somebody else, or in a situation. When I get to that time that I send energy to, all of a sudden I will feel energized, confident in the present moment. And it's kind of fascinating because you don't really need to know how it works or why it works to experiment with it.
So, for example, you would send energy in a situation where you're with someone who had a big trauma when she was a child. Would you be able to send energy to her when she was a child in the past? And how would this work? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely you can. I did hands-on healing work and over-the-phone healing work for over 10 years, just as my full-time profession. And it's quite remarkable when you start to notice how much we affect each other. So, and this physical body that we're in is really the only part of us that's localized in time and space. But the rest of us, you could call it our spirit, if you will, easily traverses between different places, different times. It's no problem at all, because time and space is a body level physical concept and experience. So this is actually kind of the anomaly. What we think is normal is actually the anomaly.
How would you convince someone? I was about to say my grandmother, but actually, in fact, my grandmother, because she was doing prayers, was way more connected to energy, because she was believing in the prayers at night. But how would you convince someone who's completely into modern life and not connected and very skeptical about energy?
I probably wouldn't try to convince somebody, but I always welcome skepticism. So when I'm teaching a class, especially if it's live, if it's at an event where people necessarily, they didn't necessarily have to pay to show up to my thing. They paid for the entire event. They're just kind of trying it out, or their friend or girlfriend dragged them in, or something. So then first thing when they come in the door is I open up their hand chakras. I do a little exercise with them. So in the room, I can just open their chakras, and right away they're like, ah, that was weird. I think I felt something, but I don't believe in this. It's like, okay, that's good. And then I always say that, skepticism is great. I think we should all question things that we just hear about. So if it's just information that somebody tells you, any stories I tell you, they're just stories that you're hearing from me. It doesn't mean that they're true. But the same goes for stories that you're telling yourself. And that's that's the part where I think people can think that's where skepticism has its biggest strength. When we're skeptical about the things that we believe about ourselves, believe about the world, believe about other people. Because if you start really looking in and saying, where did this belief come from? You can pick anything you believe in and just ask, where did this come from? Pretty quickly you'll find most of my beliefs probably didn't come from anywhere in particular. They came from what my parents said, what I saw on TV, what I learned in school, my culture, but they aren't necessarily based on our own experiences. And for me, like I said, my background's math and science, computer science in particular. And when I was in college, that's kind of how I started going this direction. I started having experiences that didn't fit into my belief system. And I had to make that choice. Well, one of these is insane, my beliefs or my experiences. So which is it? Now, I use the word insane. Maybe people might not like that word, but that's kind of how I thought of it. I'm like, something here is off. And for me, I decided it's got to be my beliefs because these experiences are repeatable. It's things that are actually happening to me. I think I'd rather throw away my beliefs and start to build a new belief system based on my personal experiences in reality. And to me, that's skepticism at its best, right?
Wow. Yeah. And what is not energy? Because you've explained what is energy for you, and what are the misconceptions according to you about energy, and what is it not like? It's not like magic or superpower.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people think of it's kind of like magic. So if you talk about energy healing, especially when people first start getting into energy work and energy healing, all of a sudden there's this idea that that's all I need. Like energy healing is enough. If I get sick, I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm just going to do some energy healing. Or, I've got a cavity. I'm just going to kind of fix it with some energy work, and I'm going to call an energy healer. We're going to just take care of it. And it turns out that doesn't really work. Energy is part of the equation. It's something that's really helpful that you can use in collaboration with all the other great tools that are out there. If I get sick, good chance I'm going to go to the doctor. Also, good chance I'm going to do energy healing on myself. Yeah. And combine those things together can work really, really well together. So yeah, it's not a replacement for everything else. It's interesting, but energy work's also it's not like a religion or a belief system. It's just an interesting human ability that we can experiment with and play with. When you start to realize how easy things can be, how easily you can kind of create and manifest things with your own intentions and using energy work, it feels a little bit like that, because it feels like you're not playing by the rules that you were taught you had to follow. Suddenly things are moving a lot faster. Coincidences are lining up. It's like things are finding you instead of you having to chase after them. And it's something anybody can try. It's great.
Can you share with me some examples of you or your wife or people around you who really started by using energy to change their life, to improve something in a certain area of their lives?
Sure, yeah. It's, for me, I've been doing this for a long time. So now it's kind of fully integrated. So I kind of have to think back to when it was new for me to give a good example. But the one that's coming to mind, there was a time I'd kind of put my career on pause, just not knowing if I was going to go back or not. And so I put my software career on pause. And I was living in Sedona at the time, which is this really beautiful energy spot. So if you're meditating and tuning in, it's a little bit easier if you're in a place where there's a lot of coherent energy already. And I was meditating, talking to guides, and I was going out to visit this teacher that I knew, this intuition teacher and healer out in California. And I was going out quite often, and my vehicle I had got really terrible mileage. I thought, okay, I just want to get something that has really good mileage because I want to start driving out. I want to enjoy the trip, go to national parks. I had this whole idea, but I didn't really want to spend much money on it, right? But I'd called around, and I was looking at the Prius, which was kind of new at the time, and they said, "Oh, it's sold out everywhere. You can't get one." And the dealer was kind of a jerk about it, and it made me kind of angry. I was like, "Well, that's not really how I roll. If I want one, I can get one. That's just that's how I feel about life." Right? And so I just meditated the next day. I was getting really clear. Just clear message. Oh, call a few more dealers that are, like an hour more away. I called one. They said, "Oh yeah, we actually have 2 on the lot right now that you could buy today." I said, "Great." So I drove over there. I got there. They said, "Oh, we just got a 3rd one in." So everywhere in the state you can't get one at all. But for me, I've got 3 to pick from. My guides at the time, they're just telling me, buy the car, buy the car, buy the car. So my conversation with my guides is very clear and vocal. It's just like talking to people. They're not usually that insistent. So I was like, buy the car, buy the car. So I said, okay, we're going to play this game. So which one should I buy? The top of the line that's really loaded, or the more discount model? I said, well, which one do you want? Okay, so I'm telling this big experiment of just kind of following my guidance, following my intuition. And I said, okay, I'll just buy the top of the line one. So I go home. I'm driving home. I've got this brand new car. I financed the whole thing. Next morning I wake up and I'm meditating. And I said, okay, guides, I need a little more information about, yesterday you said don't worry about the money, but today I'm noticing that I'm a little worried about the money. So give me a few more details. And they said, yeah, you're getting laid off in 2 weeks. Because you're working half-time at your job, you're only going to get a half-time severance package. But you worked full-time for more than 10 years. So we want you to email your boss, tell you about a car, you want to go back to full-time, and you get a full-time severance package. So you might be kind of surprised. This is the kind of detail, like once you practice a little bit, or, I guess I practiced a lot, suddenly information comes in very quickly, very easily. And I had no idea this was happening, right? So I emailed my boss. Right away she replied and said, great, I'll make the change. And I called her, I'm like, whoa, wait, I don't really want to work full-time. Can I think about it? And she was like, Jeff, let me make this change. I was like, okay. So I hung up. I went on vacation in my new car, drove out to Manchester, and 2 weeks later, the boss called. Yeah, I regret to inform you you're getting laid off. And I was so happy. And that extra 50% severance package was exactly the price, within $1,000 of the price of that new car.
Okay, interesting.
I'm like, okay, so basically by listening to my intuition, I set the intention, here's what I want. I was really clear. And then I listened. I didn't try to think about the solution. I never could have thought up something like this. I just listened, and then I took action. I just trusted it, took action, took a leap of faith. I got a free car.
Wow. Okay,
And,
that's cool.
yeah, so the kind of long story, but this is the kind of thing with some I wouldn't start with this, but with practice, you'll start to notice. I have many stories like this. This life starts to move like this all the time. This is kind of the normal way that we're connected as people. And if we're really listening to what's happening around us and happening with other people, we can flow very gracefully and easily through the world.
What I like with your story, it's that energy is not like being in a way only passive and waiting for something to happen. It's also doing the proper actions, following your intuition. It's not only intuition, it's also the action that follow your intuition.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you need to kind of listen, but then when you get inspired, be brave, take action, and see what happens, right? Like not every time. It's not going to turn out perfectly every time, but if you don't practice at all, you're never going to build up your intuition.
Okay.
But I always tell people, start with stuff that's easy. See if you can get a parking spot. See if you can figure out what's an easy way to drive to work. Pick things on a menu that you haven't tried before to see if you like them. Do things that are kind of low key. Don't start off with life or death stuff. That's kind
So you would start with a ball to connect. And which part of your body is activated?
Oh, yeah, with the energy ball is just a simple exercise. I do that one because people can usually feel that, and it doesn't require too much thought. It's a very experiential exercise. But yeah, you can ground yourself, just connect from your root chakra into the earth. You can work with your aura around you with your chakras. And really, energy work is only limited by kind of what you can imagine. It's a little bit, in some ways, it's kind of like if you're using AI right now, the thing that's restricting people is their inability to imagine how powerful it can be for them.
Yeah.
Right? So we're used to working in this small box, and so we just try to get the AI to work in that box with us. And then all of a sudden you see what somebody else is doing, and you're like, wait a minute, why am I making it so hard? AI can actually do all of that. It can do more than I can even imagine. Energy work is like this too. It's the same thing. Yeah.
So if you can do positive things, I guess some fears around energy is, can you also do negative things for people with the wrong intentions?
Yeah, I haven't actually seen that. I get that question sometimes about people worry a lot about dark energy or somebody's kind of doing some kind of energy attack, or people worry about things like this. But if you look at how things are set up, the body that you're in, that's your body. You have seniority. You make the final call energetically of what's happening in the body. It doesn't always work out that way physically. In the physical world, somebody might overpower me, or there might be things I don't want that are happening. But energetically, the buck stops here. I get to decide what comes in and what doesn't. And so the more clarity you have and the more you work with this seniority, the seniority in your own space, the easier and easier it gets. When something comes in that doesn't match or that you don't want to experience, you're able to say, how do I gracefully decline? Right?
Okay.
I'm gonna duck aside and kind of let that energy go by. Sometimes, when I was in intuition school way back, they would call it the body of glass. So you just kind of imagine your body is like a glass, and stuff's just coming through, and you don't even have to move. It just sort of like goes through you instead of getting stuck. I was like,
Okay.
yeah, that's good. That's a good analogy for energy work.
How has modern life has cut us from our intuition? And do you think we were more connected to intuition? People were more connected to their intuition before the cars, the TV, the phones?
Yeah, definitely. I think people were more connected. Yeah, I think right now what's happened is, to kind of put it in terms that my wife Isami talks about, is the way she described it. She says it's, if you think of it like having two minds. So one mind is for the body or the material world. She calls that the material mind, and then one mind is for your spirit. And energetically, this is how it works. And she says, what's happened in kind of modern times is that the material mind, which fits really beautifully in the space of spirit mind, like that's where it functions at its highest potential and in a very kind of beautiful way. It's kind of become the leader, and this material mind's kind of gone outside, and it's out here sort of like malfunctioning. That's what I talked about earlier, right? So
Yeah.
material mind is out here just because for whatever reason, we've really celebrated our ability to think. And there's nothing wrong with thinking. I love thinking too. But if you think sort of outside the bounds of what's in your highest good, or what's comfortable for your spirit, what's good for the planet, what's good for other people, if you're basically outside the space of love and you're operating really strongly with your mind, you're going to be creating chaos, even if you're not intending to. And so that's what's been happening. That's why we say things are malfunctioning. But right now, the energy on the planet is actually bringing things back toward the center. So the vibration is raising on the planet, and this material mind is coming back into the space of spirit mind. On a global level, we're also seeing that play out as the energy on the planet's rising, the temperature on the planet is rising. We're kind of moving back into a more natural state, but we're not doing it in a very graceful way. So that's kind of one thing I'm here to do, is to kind of help. Like, we're in a big transition. I want to help this be a beautiful, fun transition. It doesn't have to be a apocalypse kind of transition, right? It doesn't have to be wars and disaster. Things can be beautiful.
You mentioned your program with your wife Isami earlier. Can you tell me a bit more? Your new program, how is it happening? How long does it last? Is it physical or online also?
Yeah. The program starts out online, so it's a 5-week class, and it goes through. It's mostly a solo journey, so people really go through. First, we talk about what is this new energy that's on the planet, and how is it affecting you in tangible ways? How is it affecting your emotions in particular? And then the next chapter we look at, okay, well, what's the general trajectory that we're all evolving on consciousness-wise? What are the different phases that we're all going through right now? Because when you kind of know where you are in the journey, then it's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm like, today I'm right here, so here's the next step for me today. Oh, today I'm over here. Here's my next step today. Oh, today I'm back here. Here's my next step. So when you know where you are, it's a lot easier to kind of feel comfortable instead of panicked about where you are, and then be able to take the next step and the direction you want to go. And then we have 3 chapters that are in particular really just focused on activating the spirit mind that's been sleeping in most people. So in spirit mind also, if you talk about intuition or guidance or spirit guides, all of that fits inside this spirit mind.
Okay,
And
so
so
you
the
help
more
people sleep better.
Right. So the more that you can wake up the spirit mind, just the more clear things get. And then we also work with the opposite, like the energy is sort of squishing your material mind right now. And sort of like, that's why we're seeing a lot of conflict and war. And people have a lot of interesting symptoms like forgetting things, struggling with things. For me, I went through a period where it's like I used to be so productive and now I don't feel like doing anything. Like, am I broken? Am I going to go back to that other state? So everybody's experiencing this transition right now in different ways. And so we kind of look at how is it affecting you in particular, and then how do you cope with that and sort of embrace it and ride the wave instead of being knocked over by the wave. Yeah. So that's kind of the journey. And then I guess the last week is all about, okay, taking it forward. How do you take what you learn in the class and move it forward so that you don't need another workshop. You don't need to keep getting information from the outside. You can just let your daily life be your workshop, and you've got all the tools you need to just continue moving forward day by day in real life, not in a hypothetical classroom situation, but in your actual life. Yeah, because that's where we really need the most help.
One very interesting thing is I remember many years ago. So I was not in a different place in my journey, but I had started something about energy with a lady in Hong Kong in Asia. And when she asked me, when she proposed an online session, I was so skeptical. I couldn't imagine how energy could go through the internet. Or can you tell me more about this? How you could feel energy, or how you could get the energy even with a digital tool?
Sure. Well, you probably watch movies, right?
Yeah.
So if you watch a movie, do you get sad when you watch the movie? Do you feel excited?
A
Do you
lot,
go on a
yes.
big, there's a big emotional journey. There's a sense of celebration. How is that getting to you? None of those people are in the room, and they're actually not even real people. They're all actors. They're just acting out stories. So I just use that as an example because we're all connected all the time. So energy is, in some ways, it's kind of like hearing or smelling more than it is like seeing. If there's a sound, if somebody's stereo playing far away, you can still hear it, you can still feel it. And energy is like this. We're all sensitive to the vibrations of others, and we're kind of all in it together. When we're working in, to your question particularly, if you're doing a remote healing session, a remote energy session, I found that it actually helped when I was working with my clients to not see them. So I would just do voice only. I never did video calls. And when they picked up the phone, I just said, okay, so before you tell me anything, just tell me your name 3 times, which helps them get more centered and gives me kind of a signal to tune into. And then I would just say, here's what I see right now. So we'd do 3 to 5 minutes of just, here's what I'm picking up before you tell me anything. Because I always found that was the most honest look at the energy. Because once somebody starts talking and you're hearing their story, suddenly you have opinions about their story, you're reacting with their story, you kind of get into the story. So it's actually a little bit easier to just tune in directly to the energy alone.
So you could play, for example, if you're worried about someone close to you at the other part of the world, you could play your energy over there.
Sure. You could connect with the person, you mean? Or,
could you, or act or play in favor or connect with this person, or even do things around for the situation the person is facing so far away.
Yeah, and when you first start, it feels like that. So it feels like you're kind of connecting with people or sending energy to people or receiving energy. But as your consciousness expands, you start to notice that that's not really true, that you were always connected with everybody. The connection was always there. You're just becoming aware of it.
Yeah.
So we're not really sending energy to other people. We're just sort of coming into a coherent field with that person in the moment, so we can hear them a little more clearly. It's really interesting because we aren't really separate. I mean, physically we are, but energetically we're not. but our whole belief system, our whole experience of the world is through our physical body. So it's natural that our belief system is built up to think that's how things work. But they also work in a different way. so,
So let me
that's
ask.
when things get really interesting. You're like, ooh, it's getting really juicy in here. There's this other stuff happening. My superpowers.
No, I'm having this very weird question. I will allow myself to ask it to you. So, for example, if you're healing, if you're getting a good person and you're doing a lot of stuff, but you're connected with people who didn't do the work, can they be a burden for you because you're moving forward and you're trying to be a better person and you're still connected? That's a very weird question. I'm sorry for that. And you're connected
Yeah.
with other people.
Yeah, that probably comes down to boundaries, actually. So energetically, if you understand that you have seniority in your space and your energy or your attention is turned inward, you're kind of sourcing your beliefs, your information, your joy. If that's coming from inside, then you'll notice that it's okay. You're not. Things don't seem to be kind of coming on you or keeping you down or so on. But that being said, we're all human too. So if I go into a situation and it's kind of a dire situation, of course that's going to affect me. I'm gonna feel that as well. But I'm probably likely to recover more quickly when I leave.
Okay, we will come back to your glass analogy image.
Yeah,
The glass.
yeah.
Okay.
It's like actually, if you think about the glass, when people ask, I got a glass of water here. So if you think about the water is my energy, or say the water is your energy, right? The glass is your body, and your energy always has priority in your body.
Yeah.
So if there's a different energy, like let's put a little oil on top, right? So there's a little oil floating on the top there, and you're feeling kind of congested. I don't like this. There's some foreign energy in there. Well, how do you get it out? So people think, like, oh, maybe I'll use a spoon or a sponge or a laser, or I'm going to do something to get that foreign energy out. But really, the easiest thing to do is just fill up the glass with more water. Just put more of your energy into your body, and naturally, as it starts to overflow, the foreign energy will just pour out.
Okay.
Right? Because your energy has priority in your body. So if you're completely full of your own energy, there's no room for anything else in there.
Interesting.
But that's not something we're used to doing. Usually we're a little depleted in our energy. There's plenty of room for other stuff to be in there. But that's not it's not the other people's fault. They're not like putting that in there. Ultimately, that's my fault
That's
because
a
I'm not filling myself up.
responsibility. Yeah. Okay, I understand. Yeah, very good analogy. Yeah. So you're in beautiful Japan. I've been there recently in November for the wedding of my cousin. It's such an amazing country. What do you like about the spirituality of this country?
Yeah, Japan's really wonderful. I'm not fluent in Japanese yet, but just tuning into the people, what I notice here is there's a certain peacefulness that people have, and there's a deep kindness that I see expressed more here than maybe I see it expressed other places. I think everybody has kindness inside, but here it seems to be okay to express that. It's okay to take care of people, even strangers. If when I was first here, if I needed something, if I'm at the bus stop or at the train station and I'm lost, somebody will just come up and offer, say, in a little kind of broken English, say like, can I help? Or maybe go over and talk to that, you're probably trying to go over there. Like people are always trying to help. And it was a little strange to me because I'm American and I just wasn't used to that. And not that, Americans can be kind too, but it's not so culturally acceptable to just help people you don't know.
Yeah.
Where here it's kind of feels like one big family in some ways.
Did you meet your wife in Japan?
I did. I met her here. It was actually a mutual friend in Sedona connected us because I was coming out to Japan to teach. And after all the teaching was done, I met up with Hisami and we were married about 8 months later. So.
Oh, wow, that was quick. Good intuition then.
Yeah, it's funny. Hisami, neither of us are bilingual, and at the time I didn't speak any Japanese. She didn't speak any English. She could say "Hi, I'm Isami," and I could say "Konnichiwa," Jeffrey Allen des, and that was it.
No way.
But we both work with energy, right? So we speak energy, we feel energy, and that was the connection we had. So
Wow. So you spoke like you found your own language, the two of you.
yeah, and even now, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this. From a practical perspective, speaking the same language as your partner is very convenient. but but somebody asked me that. They said, "Well, wouldn't life be easier if your wife spoke the same language?" Without even thinking, I said, "Well, of course, but my life wouldn't be easier if that meant I had a different wife, right?"
Yeah.
It just turns out that my wife doesn't speak English, and, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't swap her out for somebody else. It's perfect.
And maybe you wouldn't have connected so deeply if you, maybe language sometimes can also be confusing, and maybe you wouldn't have connected so deeply with her had you spoken the same language.
Yeah, definitely. That's best first date ever. We were in Yokohama at the park and dinner and so on. But we talked, but we didn't really understand each other. But of course we would say things, and then we'd just laugh. And, but if you really want to get to know somebody, and you can't use your words, suddenly this like really beautiful connection happens. Like you're really focused. You're looking at them. You're excited and interested, but you can't talk to them. It's really magical. I'd recommend everybody try it at least once.
That's beautiful. How do you complete each other today in the work you're doing? What do you bring to each other? And how did you manage to evolve together as a couple and as therapists or healers working together?
The way that we work together is, talk about these two different minds, right? So for me, my material mind, sort of my logical mind, is very active. I've always had a really kind of fast and active mind. So that's a strength that I have. I also have been working with intuition for a long time, but even when I was, had been teaching for 10 years, and even when I was, feeling like, oh, I'm getting up to this like higher level, there was always some part that I felt that was a little bit missing. Like there's like, yeah, everything is great. I don't have any complaints, but there's somehow I thought there was going to be this kind of peaceful state that I would get to that I could sustain. And I found that I was able to create that state, but I would kind of like always come back to sort of more normal, right? Well, normal for me, right? And so I was really looking for, what's that next step? What's that next information? And that's the part that Hisami really completed for me. So when I met her, she was always in this spirit mind space all the time. She's always coming from love, and she's just always connected. She doesn't tune into people. She's just always on, and it's just been like that from birth for her. Where I'm sort of a person that got interested in energy work and learned how to do it, right? And then taught
Okay,
other
interesting.
people.
What was the spiritual journey to Izami? Was she always connected, or did she had an awakening, or she started to study
She
more?
was always connected, even from the time she was a child. She understood energy, and she understood and saw energy. And she said she was about 10 years old when she realized, oh, everybody else doesn't see half of the world, and that's why they're always getting frustrated with me when I talk about it. Because she has a lot of funny stories. Like she's a kid, she's watching the moms talking, her friends' moms talking, and somebody's saying something really nice about one of the other moms, and Isami's looking at the energy, and the energy is completely different. So just like a child would, she asked, she's like, oh, why are you saying that? Because you really don't like that other mom. You really don't like her, and you think this about her, and she's very specific,
Okay.
and she'd say things to teachers like this, so, and of course, people don't want you looking at their, secret information and then
Yeah.
sharing it, right? But a child doesn't know that. A child, if you can see it, she just assumed everybody could see it, and so she got in a lot of trouble.
Must not be easy every day to be married to such a wife if she can read your
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, it's true. Well, keeps me honest. But it's yeah. So that's kind of how Isami really completed me. She helped me find that it's not actually new information that I needed. It's just this different perspective,
Okay.
and it's being able to take that strong material mind I have and bring it into spirit mind, where it's I feel fulfilled to begin with. I'm not chasing fulfillment on the outside. It's like I'm starting from fulfillment and then creating from there.
And how do
And
you
then
evolve together?
it's been really fun because we've been married for almost 15 years. So like I said, Hisami really had very little material mind when I met her. She was just all spirit. And so that part's balancing a little too. Her material mind is growing up a little bit. She's using it more, and hopefully that's a good thing. I hope it's not like putting poison in the pure stream, right? But she seems to be happy with it too. We're kind of finding this balance together, but we sort of embody these two things that we teach about. I can sort of be the stereotype of one, she can be the stereotype of the other.
Yeah, that's nice. How would you say for a couple when it's been a long time, the couple is a bit disconnected, and one of them has been more spiritual but cannot communicate to the other one who doesn't want to change, and there's been a lot of lack of connection, because I can see a lot of couple like this. And do you think one of the two, probably the most spiritual, can by himself or by herself change and improve the relationship, or what can be done, or is it the end of the relationship?
Yeah, there's no kind of one answer that's going to fit every couple, right? So for some people, they're going to find the love that we have together is strong enough that I want to continue, even though we're on different roads right now, or we've been on different roads for a while. There's enough shared intention to continue that things will start to come back together. But some relationships is totally okay too. If you get to that point in your relationship and you say, we've been trying for a long time, and I'm just kind of ready to go off in a new direction, or we're ready to go off in different directions ourselves. So that's totally okay too. There's no it's not better to stay with somebody or better to break up with somebody. Really, people need to look within and kind of come to that, what feels the most loving for yourself, for the world, for the other person. And I think that all these paths can be done with love. But to your question, so if somebody wants to come back together, can one person influence it? I would say yes. I'm just looking at the energy. Yes, if you're patient. If the time frame's not constrained, definitely you can, bring things back to a closer place in a relationship. But that's the question we really have to ask ourselves, though, is like, not if something's possible, but is it possible in a time frame that you want to, that's acceptable to you, right? So, it's natural. Like sometimes people are going through some kind of illness or stress at work, or there's something that's affecting them where they're just super grumpy for a year or 2 years, and I've been through that. I've been grumpy before, and it's like Hisame was with me for that time when I was grumpy and helped me. And now when I look back, I finally got over feeling guilty. Now I look back and I'm just grateful. And I feel like, if something happens with her where she's down or something's going on for her, I'm excited to be there and play that other side, right? I want to be the person that hangs out and holds space. But you have to have that kind of joy and enthusiasm rather than thinking, I'm going to change them, today. I want them to feel better and happier, or I want them to be more like me next month. That's not really going to work out so much.
Yeah.
So the best you can do is just hold that yourselves in a space of love and be okay. Like, I don't actually know if we're gonna come together. I don't know if we're gonna go apart, but I'm gonna be in that space of love either way. And I'm leaning toward together, so I'm just gonna hold that space. But if from the space of love we drift apart, then I'll accept that too.
How do you know when you're in doubt, when you still love someone, or if you don't love someone anymore with your energy? How do you know
good
that?
questions. How do you know if you still love somebody? If you're thinking about it, you're probably not going to come up with a good answer. It's kind of like that's when we're using the wrong mind, right? So you've got a material mind for material world things, and you've got a spirit mind for spirit things. So you're going to have to tune into the spirit mind for answers about love. The material mind, your logical thinking mind, doesn't know anything about love. Yeah, probably people get really excited about this idea that we don't speak the same language. So people ask a lot about that. Like, well, how do you communicate? How does that work? And so that one's really common. And to be honest, when we were first together, I just sort of forgot that she didn't speak English. And I'd be talking to her and she'd be nodding, and it felt to me like she was listening and understanding me. But remember, she's listening to the energy too, so she knows Jeffrey likes to talk. Right? Right now, he's excited about something, but it totally doesn't matter if I'm listening or not. He'll just keep talking anyway. And so she's smiling, she's enjoying the show, but she's not, getting the words necessarily. And then we'd go somewhere together, like we'd go visit my family and we'd go to the US, and then I'd realize, I'm like, wait a minute, my wife really doesn't understand English. I'm surprised. Why am I surprised? Plus, there's just so much communication happening that's nonverbal all the time, and for me, that's just as real as the verbal stuff. Yeah.
That's a good story. And during the training, what do people want to, what are the questions they have for you during the training? People who come to see you?
Usually people are struggling with, actually, it's very similar to what you said. There's some real world problem and they want to figure it out with their mind. So they want like 2 or 3 steps that are going to take them from wherever they're at to the place that they think they want to go. And notice I said the place they think they want to go, right? Because that's where we get into trouble, right? And so there's a lot of questions about that. There's a lot of confusion around, so we'd call it like material mind spirituality. So I want to learn a lot of information about spirituality. I want to learn a lot of information about energy work. I want to learn a lot of information about spirit or information about love. And this idea that somehow that's going to help us in some way. And I'm not saying those things aren't useful, but if you kind of look at how we learn in the world, if you look at a basketball player, if you take 2 kids, one person just loves to play, they go out and they just play a lot, they're going to get better. If that same kid just sat down and just watched a bunch of instructional videos on how to play basketball, and they just spent a year studying, they got a college degree in basketball theory.
Yeah.
Who's gonna play better, right? So you have to experience life. You can't just think about what it would be like to do these things. And if if you're listening to this and you're getting to doubt, trust yourself that like everybody has the ability to tune in and understand, what's happening with you. Like your question about how do you know if you're still in love, right? So just turn down all the noise around you and just get to a space where you feel deeply connected with yourself and really full of your own energy, and you'll know. Oh, there's the piece that I had. So it's like Hisami will always laugh at me if she asks if I'm hungry. There was a time where she'd ask if I was hungry, and I would like look at my watch to see what time it was, and she would say, she's like, does your watch know if you're hungry?
That's
Like,
a good one.
and I'm like, well, it's not dinner time yet. And she's like, I didn't ask if it was dinner time. I asked if you were hungry, because she's looking at the energy. She's like, you look like you're hungry. It looks like you're kind of, your blood sugar's low. And
That's a good one. Yeah.
yeah, same thing with sleep. I put a little sleep tracker into the mattress. It's kind of fun. Sometimes I'll check and see, did I have better sleep this month? And I bought one for Isami too. And right away she said, look, when I wake up, I know if I had a good night's sleep or not, because I'm tired if I didn't. And she's like, I'm not going to look at my phone and check some data about whether I got a good night's sleep. She's like, I know that. Same thing about love. Like, if you're in love.
Yeah.
The question that we have, the doubt that comes in is like, am I brave enough to see the truth? Am I brave enough to live that truth once I see it? Am I brave enough to communicate that to other people? Like, that's the scary part. But everybody knows, if you tune in, you already know all the information you need. But it's scary, to be honest, to be authentic.
That's very interesting that you're talking about to be brave, because the central theme of Harvest in May is going to be courage. And I wanted to ask you a question. The Harvest of the Day is, when in your life do you think, personally or professionally, you had to show the most courage?
I don't know if this is really courage, but what comes to mind right away is when I met Hisami. And I knew even before I actually met her that we were going to get together. From the first time I heard her name, I was like, whoa, wow, yeah, I really want to meet her. And but then I met her, and everything was even better than I imagined it. But it was scary, because I could see that it's like everything that I didn't know I wanted in a relationship is right here. So it's kind of like I live in Tokyo, so a lot of train analogies. Like I'm at the train station, and this bullet train, or they call them quiet trains here, not bullet trains in Japan. the speed train, the quiet train is going exactly where I want to go, exactly this place of happiness. But I know that I'm not really ready. Like, had I understood that I was going to have this opportunity, I wish I had prepared more. I wish I was more ready for the situations in front of me, but that's no reason to not get on the train.
Yeah.
It's like, because, that's how it works in Tokyo. The train stops, the door opens. You've got about a minute to decide. Then the door closes and it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, my train's here right now. I'm not quite ready. Am I going to get on anyway? And I was like, of course I am. Of course I am. I've been waiting for many years, dreaming about this moment, and it's okay that I'm not ready. I'm just gonna go anyway, and just trust that I'll learn and I'll grow as needed along the way.
That's beautiful. How do you teach people to jump in the train energetically? What would be the first step to be more brave in their life?
Yeah, I would say starting to tune into intuition and energy work really helps. So usually we're afraid because our mind has a bunch of ideas and fears, like just a bunch of concerns. But that stuff's not so important. It's you want to be aware when there's danger, but that doesn't mean you should stop and freeze, right? Every time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would never get anywhere, right? There's always danger. So you want to be aware of your environment, but energy work and working with the energy body helps you learn to tune in and just get really present in the body and listen to your signal. And you don't have to listen to everybody else. You don't even have to listen to me. What you want to listen to is listen to yourself. Like tune into your own signal. And once you're tuned in there, all of a sudden it doesn't even feel brave anymore. It just feels clear.
Yeah. The problem is we have so much conditioning. We have with education, with what your parents told you, with what we're watching on TV. We have so much conditioning. It's hard to clear the noise even inside, I think.
Yeah. But with practice, it gets a lot easier. Once you learn to just fill up your own energy, come back into the space of love. The easier and more often that you do that, like all of a sudden, things just become clear. And then at some point, the desire to like hide your rough spots and like, just put your best foot forward, like all that stuff sort of eventually fades away. And it's like, I have a lot more fun if I'm just being myself. And some people will like that, some people won't. And it's totally okay. It doesn't mean anything because I'm still me, regardless what other people think. And so as long as I like me and I'm enjoying myself and I'm filling up from within, then that's great.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That's actually, working with energy, work, and intuition is really helps because it's the right direction. It's taking your awareness, starting to point inward rather than outward, and that's really the only way to get out of fear.
So would you recommend to do it 5 minutes to start every morning at the same time to start a routine with connecting with yourself?
Yeah, any way that comes to mind is good. So for me, early on I tied it to something I was doing every day. So I would drive to work, and I noticed that when I'd get in my truck and I would turn on the radio. So this is a while back, right? I'd turn on the radio, I'd listen to music on the way to work, and so one day I just thought, before I turn the radio on, I'm going to ground myself. I take a couple breaths. I'm just going to sort of check my energy. That's so fascinating and so engaging for me that it wasn't quite a year later, it's probably 9 months later, I noticed that I hadn't listened to the radio since that day in my car.
Okay.
But the habit was there. Every day I got in and I reached for it and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm going to ground myself first.
Okay.
Once I did that, all of a sudden, just everything was so interesting. So the whole ride to work was exciting. I was looking at the energy of cars, which way to go. I'm just it's like I went from looking like this to suddenly this is this whole world. And I didn't need external stimulus from the radio anymore.
Wow.
So tie it to something you do. It could be brushing your teeth or shower or, a few minutes before your alarm goes off. Just give yourself a few minutes there. Any place that it's easy to put it in. It does. If you have to try really hard to make yourself do it, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
that's not the right time.
Fantastic. Where can people reach you and get in touch with your training with his ami Jeffrey?
Sure. Yeah, you can go to my website, which is iamjeffreyallen.com, or you can just go to spiritmind.com. And Spirit Mind is the program that Hisami and I created together. So both those places, or of course, Instagram or social media, you can always find me there.
Okay, yeah, I'm following you. It's great. Thank you so much. I'm very happy. I knew I had an intuition it would be a great interview, and I'm happy it was. Thank you so much for taking time and your patience to explain me in many forms what energy is and how to connect with yourself.
Oh, yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for all the really insightful questions. And I'm always excited when, like, your questions were really coming from your own curiosity and from your heart, things you want to know. And that's the most fun conversations we can have.
Oh, well, fabulous. Well, good luck and enjoy Tokyo, or maybe jealous there.
All right, yeah, take care.